Hello, everyone. Welcome to All About Spanish-Speaking Locations. My name is 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦. I'm the Vice President of Alumni and Inclusion Initiatives at AIFS Study Abroad. I am joined by my colleague, Michelle. Michelle, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦. I am the Regional Vice President for University Relations over on the West Coast.
Excellent. Thank you. And then I have several alumni ambassadors who are going to be introducing themselves in mere moments, but I wanted to, for all of you, kind of give you a quick overview of AIFS. So we have been around since 1964. AIFS stands for the American Institute for Foreign Study. We have programs that run as short as 2 weeks and as long as a year. So no matter where in the world you want to go or how long you'd like to be there, chances are we have something for you. Our programs are not limited to students that are studying a language. And I think that's important to recognize because even though today we are talking about Spanish-speaking locations, we have students that are starting at the very beginning of the language. And so that is definitely something we can work with. We have students that are either native speakers or been taking the language for a couple of years. And again, we can accommodate you no matter where you fall on that spectrum. We do work with all majors. There are certain locations that will lend themselves better to some majors over others. But we definitely have information you can check out on our website where you can kind of search by major and term and location. We work with students who are graduating high school seniors all the way through graduating college seniors. And something I think is important to know as you are thinking about study abroad is that our fees are guaranteed in US dollars. So no matter what the value of the dollar does against foreign currencies, the prices that you see on the website are locked in for the time ahead. And something that is really interesting and unique about our programs is that they're set up to be all-inclusive. So the fee that you see on the website is going to include everything you see listed on the screen, your housing, meal plan or a meal stipend, depending on the location. We have some locations where you can have all of your meals included and others where you'll receive a stipend and you can kind of choose to use it for groceries or eating out, depending on, again, where you go. We have amazing resident directors on site. This is one of the things that our alumni often sing the praises of most. Our staff on site speak both the local language as well as English. They've all had the opportunity to travel and live abroad, so they know what it feels like to cross cultures. If you're having a day where you're like, I can't remember how to say lettuce, they'll be like, lechuga, it's okay. If you're in a Spanish-speaking location, it's one of the few Spanish words I know. We have a suite of excursions and cultural programming in country that will help you to get connected with locals and really get a lay of the land and get to know each location in a deep and meaningful way. We have travel insurance and health insurance that's a part of the program. And certainly while you're abroad, no one wants to get sick. But if you do find yourself having a cold or you sprain your wrist, you're going to be covered while you're in country, no worries. We also have an optional flight and transportation package. And what's really nice about that, especially if it's your first time traveling abroad, you're going to have someone that's going to meet you at the airport with the AIFS sign, and they're going to take you into the city center. And you don't have to worry about kind of making that journey on your own. And then certainly in my role, I always like to highlight the fact that we have alumni programs. So once you've come back from studying abroad and you want to share your experience with others, we have a lot of different ways that you are able to do that. So today we have several different locations that are going to be represented, but I did want to highlight all of our Spanish-speaking locations because we have a couple that we don't have ambassadors on the phone for today. So we have programs in Argentina, in Chile, in Costa Rica, in Spain, several locations that are represented. And then we also have our study and travel programs. And those programs allow you to kind of study one topic comparatively. So you're going to be traveling around to different locations during the summer. And those are some of our most popular locations during the summer as well as our travel programs. And then one last thing, I just wanted to highlight the fact that we do have alumni. So no matter what your social identities are, no matter what location you're interested in, we have students that would be happy to talk to you and are eager to talk to you about their experience. So definitely make sure that you connect with them. You can do that through your student portal. There is an Ask Alumni button. And if you click on that, you can search by home institution or program location. You can also always send me an email at alumni@aifs.com, and I'll be happy to connect you with any individuals you'd like to chat with. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we have a presence on social media, so you can check out our blogs and Instagram and all those different spaces and kind of see the programs in a different way than that you would just looking at the website. And we also have a student resources and FAQ section. Really great resources in there. So information on social identities, information on accommodation in country. If you have any mobility or cognitive considerations, there are forms that you can download and send back to us so we can better support you while you're in country. So website is there. And also if you scan the QR code, it will take you to our website where you can get all sorts of information. Again, connect with us. Our general email is studyabroad@aifs.com. So you can always send that. And our colleague Jackie will be happy to answer any questions and again, connect you with any alumni that you would like to speak to. So with that, I'm actually going to stop sharing the screen so that I can see all of you a little bit larger on my screen here. And as I mentioned, we have some fantastic alumni today. They're gonna share their experiences with us. So I'm gonna call you in the order that you appear on my screen. And if you would be so kind as just to introduce yourselves, your name, your home university, where you studied abroad, and which term that you studied abroad for. That would be most appreciated. So Madison, will you kick us off?
Yeah, okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Madison, and I am a senior international studies major at Texas A&M University in College Station, Texas. And I was able to study abroad a year ago, spring 2020, in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Excellent. Thank you. Haley.
Hi, everybody. My name is Haley Martinez. I am a senior at Washington State University studying multimedia journalism, and I studied abroad in Barcelona, Spain in spring 2020.
Excellent. Thank you. Olivia.
Hi everyone, I'm Olivia. I am from California Lutheran University in Thousand Oaks, north of LA, and I studied abroad in Granada, Spain in spring 2019 for the semester.
Excellent. Thank you. Rachel.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Ransom. I'm a recent graduate from Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia, where I studied business administration, and I studied abroad in spring of 2020 in Barcelona, Spain.
Thank you. And Alina.
Hi everyone, my name is Alina. I am a sophomore at the University of California, Berkeley, and I studied abroad in Granada, Spain in fall of 2018.
Excellent. So we've got a wide assortment of locations, and I look forward to hearing more about each of your experiences. Haley, I wanted to see, can you get us started by simply talking about why you chose your study abroad location?
Yeah, I chose Barcelona for a number of different reasons. I had traveled there before a few years prior with my family for only about 5 days, and I really loved the city, but I obviously didn't get to see as much of it as I would have wanted to, so I thought that it would be a perfect place to study abroad. I also love the city and I love the beach because I'm originally from California, so having the beach so close was something that was important to me, and I just love the culture in Spain, and I thought that it would be a perfect fit for me to study abroad at.
Excellent. All very good reasons. And now I open it up to the rest of my alumnus here. Do you have any particular reasons that you chose your study abroad location?
Yeah, I can talk about Buenos Aires. Like I said, I'm an international studies major, and I focus a lot on US Latin American relations. So I knew going into this that I really wanted to choose a location somewhere in South America. And I wanted to be different. I wanted to learn Spanish somewhere else other than Spain. And so that was another huge reason. And then when I was just narrowing down which city I wanted, I thought Buenos Aires seemed beautiful. It was the capital of Argentina, and it was just a really big, really lively city. So that really drew me to it.
Excellent. Also very good reasons. Any other insights on sort of why you chose your location?
Yes, so for me, I chose Barcelona because I knew that I enjoyed like Spanish and Hispanic culture, but I had never been to Europe before, so that was a great location. And then I specifically chose Barcelona just because I knew it was like a larger city that had everything I liked, like the beach, the mountains, the city, shopping, a lot of different food. So that was really exciting. And one thing just to note, like when choosing a study abroad location, it's such a fun experience because you can really make a checklist of everything you like, and there's going to be somewhere that encompasses all those things along with like the academic things that you need to go along with this. So that's really fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, kind of as several of you pointed out, like Barcelona is sort of unique in that it has a little something for everyone, right? It's a big city, but it doesn't feel overwhelming, at least in my experience there. You do have the ocean, you've got the mountains very close by. So kind of think about the environment in which you would like to place yourself. Alina, I saw that you might have some insights as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was sort of choosing my location, I knew I wanted a Spanish-speaking location, and I decided Spain just because there were so many different options and every city was a little bit different, so you could really pick and choose what you wanted. And I ultimately settled on Granada for a couple of reasons. One, it's close to the ocean and it's close to the mountains, which is super cool. It has a nice climate, doesn't get too hot and it doesn't get too cold. And also the cost of living there was a lot cheaper than other locations, Spanish speaking locations, in part because it's a smaller city, it's a little bit more isolated. So that was another reason why I thought Granada would be best.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over. Obviously, it's called Study Abroad for a reason, right? So you're going to be taking classes while you're there. Madison, can you talk a little bit about what classes that you took and sort of how the learning environment might have been different, or the style of learning was different compared to what you're used to at your home university?
Yeah, so the AIFS program with the University of Belgrano offers a summer Spanish intensive class that you can take before your semester. So I showed up about 5 weeks earlier than the people there for the regular semester and took an intensive Spanish class. And then I ended up taking 5 classes during the regular semester. Um, and I was sent home due to COVID, so I did take all of these online. But I would say that the learning experience was pretty similar to my classes here in the United States. I had a lot of reading I had to do on my own, but we would also do quite a few group projects. I would collaborate with people, not just in the US, but all over Europe and Latin America as well, to do some of these group projects. And then we had about 2 or 3 tests per class, which is about the same as like amount of tests I have here at Texas A&M. So I would say that like the workload was pretty similar, but the way that they grade and the way that professors communicate with you is a lot more laid back. They're on a 1 to 10 scale, and a 4 is passing. So I guess like a 4 would be a 60 here or a 70 here. And then my professors would just tell me, they'd be like, "You're doing fine." Wouldn't tell me a grade. They'd just tell me I'm doing fine throughout the semester. And I did great. But they're just a lot more laid back. They're not as strict. And they really focus on like group work and actually learning.
Excellent. And that's really important to know. And, you know, as you are approaching kind of like, how do I prepare for this? So now I open it up to the rest of you. And I actually want to, before I open it up, Natalie, I saw that you were able to join us. Welcome. We had everyone introduce themselves. And so I wanted to make sure, can you introduce yourself, home institution and your study abroad location and when you studied abroad, please?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Peters. I'm a marketing major and I go to California Baptist University. I studied at the Autonomous University of Barcelona in fall of 2019.
Excellent. AUB for short. Yeah, it's got a longer name to remember there. Excellent. Well, we're glad you were able to join. So now I open it up to all of you. Kind of, what was your experience as far as what types of classes did you take, and how did you adjust to the different learning styles? Cool presentation.
I had a somewhat similar. Oh, go ahead, Haley.
You can go. I'll move after.
Okay. My experience in Granada was similar to what Madison described, in that it was pretty laid back, very focused on the actual learning process. We did have fewer grades throughout the semester than I'm used to in the US. So a lot of my classes were just graded on a midterm and a final, which kind of stressed me out at the beginning, but it turned out fine. And I took really interesting classes. We did a placement test in Spanish at the beginning of the semester. And so I ended up taking all my classes in Spanish, but some people were all in English, some people were a mix. And all my classes transferred back as Spanish credits since they were in Spanish. So it really helped my degree. Now I'm a double major in Spanish and psych. And then as well as I took a literature class, a religion, 2 Spanish language classes, and then I did an internship teaching English in a school. And that was definitely a highlight of my whole experience. And now that's kind of what I want to do with my life. So I would highly recommend the internships.
Nice. You and Haley, anything that you would like to add?
Yeah, something that was my favorite part about my classes is that we got to go on a lot of field trips during class. So for instance, my intercultural communication class, some days we would meet in the middle of the city and explore different neighborhoods and kind of observe how people act and how the culture in Spain is much different than our host culture. And that was something that I thought was really interesting, how we used what we would learn in class and have big discussions and then go out into the actual city and kind of explore different parts that we probably wouldn't have seen just on our own. So that was a really interesting thing.
Excellent. Yeah, I see a lot of heads nodding. The city as the classroom is definitely a common theme in study abroad. And I did, you brought up a great point, Olivia, about the placement test. And that's something that I know a lot of students might have questions about. So I wanted to see, would anyone talk a little bit about what the placement test was like? You know, did you do it before you went abroad? Did you do it when you were in country upon arrival? I'm just kind of giving a little overview on that, and I will open it up to anyone that might want to give some insight to that.
I'd love for someone else to add on to it, but just to start out from my experience, specifically just when it came to getting into a Spanish language course, I was placed in the, I guess, lowest level one. And then to get into a higher one, I had to do a verbal test just through having a conversation with my instructor. I don't know if anyone else's was different though.
Excellent. Thank you.
I know for Argentina, we were sent a link to a test beforehand, and it was just written. We had to do it online. And then from there, they placed us into our different levels. And after you completed the summer schedule, then you could choose certain classes either in Spanish or English, or you could try and test again into classes with locals, which one of my friends was able to do that. But I just took Spanish classes with other Americans and Europeans.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other thoughts on the placement test?
Yeah. Yeah, so in Granada, we took the tests in country.
I was going to say your audio is cutting out a little bit. So do you want to
Okay.
turn the video off, and that way we can actually hear you.
Yes, is this better now?
That is so much better. Thank you.
Okay. So what I was saying was that we took our tests in country, and there was a written portion and a speaking portion. And I found that the test was pretty laid back. The written portion was obviously a little bit more stressful. But once I was talking with the professor, they really worked with me to sort of get me into the level that I wanted to be. And I did the month of immersion prior to the regular semester. So I actually had the opportunity to sort of test into a level, take classes for a month, and then test again to get into a higher level, which was really helpful and helped me get into the level that I wanted to be in while in country.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other insights on the test portion? And for those of you that maybe have not taken any Spanish language, don't worry, you will just automatically go into the beginning level of Spanish in whatever location that you choose. Let's see, where were we? I believe we are now ready to talk about excursions. So I'm going to turn it over to Alina. Can you talk a little bit about what your favorite excursion or included activity was?
Yeah, absolutely. So through the AIFS program, they give you a really wide variety of excursions that you can participate in. So there are ones that are within your city, there are ones that are within your region. And with the Granada program, there were actually excursions outside of Spain. So I think one of the most insightful ones for me was getting to go to Morocco, which is in North Africa. So that was really cool. And it was a completely different place. And just a really interesting experience, and one that I would not have had if I hadn't, first of all, been studying abroad in Granada, and also if I hadn't been with a program like AIFS that made those opportunities really easy for me to access.
Excellent, thank you. And Natalie, I would love to know, what was your favorite excursion or included activity?
For me, it was when we went to Montserrat. It was like, I think an hour away from Barcelona, but it was just so beautiful. Like, cause like in the city, like I didn't get to like see the sky as much as I usually do like back home, but Montserrat was like way out. So it was just like nature, and just like the mountains were so green and it was so pretty. We were also supposed to go to 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦, but that didn't happen. But I would have loved to go there because I looked at pictures and it was beautiful. That would have been my favorite trip.
Well, hopefully next time, right? When you get back over there.
It gives me a reason to go back to Spain, because then I can go to 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦.
Just to
Absolutely.
go off what Natalie was saying, I went to Barcelona a couple semesters after her, and that day of going to Montserrat and Sitges, like Montserrat was like all the way up in the mountains, so it was just like such an experience getting up there and then being immersed in the mountains, and then Sitges was all the way down on the beach, so it was just like the two extremes. It was just really cool to see, and I felt like places like Sitges looked like I guess you could say similar to like Santorini, Greece, just with like a lot of white houses. So it was really cool to be somewhere like that.
Nice. I love that. Thank you. Anyone else want to talk about their favorite excursion or activity, social activity that was included?
I can jump in on the local ones. In Granada, we went to a cooking class and learned how to cook paella, and they gave us the recipe to take home. So I got to experiment with that with my family. And then we also went to these, I'm forgetting what they're called right now, but they're like basically a hot springs,
Okay.
baths and caves. And that was really relaxing and fun.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, so let us talk about clubs and organizations. And I'm going to turn it over to Alina. Did you get involved with any clubs or organizations while you were abroad?
It's cut out. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Sorry, it cut out for a little bit. Yeah, so one of the things that I got to do was participate in a program called 𝗟𝗘𝗧'𝗦, which was a volunteering program. And I had the opportunity to be a companion for an elderly couple. So once a week, I would go to their home and I would just sit and talk with them for 2 hours. And it was just a really cool experience, not just to practice my Spanish skills, but also just to learn about the culture and learn about the everyday life of Spaniards in Granada. And I made great connections with these people, and it was just a really nice experience that I had the opportunity to have.
I love that. Did anyone else get involved with any sort of clubs or organizations while you were in country that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I didn't get to join it while I was in country because it was virtual, but my university offered an language exchange with students who were, I guess, similar majors as us at the University of Belgrano. So I had 2 buddies, Bruno and Sophia, and I would talk to them on Zoom like 2 times a week. We were all quarantined, so we would honestly meet up and talk a lot, and just like half the time speak in English and half the time speak in Spanish. And it was just a really great way for me to hear the Argentinian accent, even though I was stuck at home in Texas. And also, I mean, I made really good friends. I literally was catching up with Bruno like yesterday, even though my semester's been over. So it was a really fun experience.
Nice. I love that. And that leads into a question that I didn't have on my set list, but it kind of prompted me to think about it. Can any of you, and this is open to all of you, talk a little bit about Spanish proficiency and sort of how your language proficiency increased, hopefully, while you were abroad?
I think personally, my language proficiency definitely increased while I was abroad. And I think once I got home, it went right back away. But I think that really comes from just being immersed in the daily life of like being in a place like Spain, of reading the signs and using just your own context clues to figure out what things mean, and then kind of remembering those and building your vocabulary off of things like that, or like your daily interactions at a coffee shop or a smoothie bar. So it wasn't too difficult. And even people I know who came to study abroad in Spain who had never spoken Spanish before, I know that they were even able to gain a knowledge on the language, not even through classes, but through their like daily interactions. So I just think that wherever you go, if it's a Spanish speaking country or not, you will adapt some proficiency in the language just because it becomes your surrounding and the only thing you have. So when it's the only thing you have to rely on, you're going to have to get used to it. So it's not too difficult. Yeah.
Thank you. And I know a couple of you did homestays. Anyone that did a homestay want to talk about kind of how that impacted your language proficiency?
Yeah, I was going to say that was the biggest factor for me in improving my language. Was I lived with 2 host parents, and the dad was learning English, so he spoke a fair amount, but we spent the most time with the host mom, and she didn't speak any English. And so basically every lunch and dinner we were talking with her in our cobbled together Spanish, and I learned so much just from talking with her and learning how to explain around things. And then I totally agree that your surroundings and your classes help. And I would actually say it hasn't slipped completely back. I think I'm definitely better at speaking Spanish now than I was before I left. It's kind of up to you with practicing it as you get back to.
Absolutely. You have to push yourself a little bit more maybe than when everything is in Spanish and everyone you're engaging with would naturally, or more people would be speaking the language. Did anyone have any other thoughts on any of those, either the clubs and organizations or just sort of language proficiency?
Okay, so one of my problems, like when I would try to speak Spanish in Spain, they'd always speak back to me in English. So it's really hard for me to like learn through interactions with other people. But like when I would go to stores, like I'd go to the grocery store, like I like to like read and just like try to just like think and figure out like what it says. Or I mean, sometimes there's like pictures, so I was like, oh, okay. So then I got to pick up some vocabulary from that. But daily interactions were really important, and even if it's not with a person, but I was still able to develop some proficiency through that. I think that was cool.
Absolutely, and I love that, just sort of contextual clues, right? And yeah, if it does have a picture, absolutely that's going to help. But sometimes you might have picked something thinking it was one thing, and then you get it home and you open it up and you're like, oh, this is maybe a little different than what I bargained for, but that's part of the adventure as well, right? Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and move us on. Rachel, I know you said you'd like to talk a little bit about how your social identities were impacted while you were abroad and kind of how you were received.
Yes. So I think it's important, like before going into this, to note that like obviously racism and colorism is everywhere, but I don't think that necessarily means that you're always going to have a negative experience everywhere you go. So like, for example, in Spain and Barcelona, I never felt like threatened or anything for being a Black woman. But at the same time, I recognized that I was in a place that was a very homogenous culture, meaning everyone looked the same. And with that being said, I definitely noticed that like maybe I would get looks like, oh, just someone has never seen maybe a Black person or a Black American person before. But that's not to say that like I ever felt isolated from the culture. I just thought I was, or knew that I was someone different than what people were used to. But it's also nice to be that person at times, because you can be the person that teaches someone and gives them the, I guess, insight into what Black American women specifically are like. So.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else want to talk about sort of social identities, being a woman abroad, and what that experience was like?
I feel like a big fear I had that honestly probably my parents and some other people instilled in me was that men in Argentina and Latin America in general would be very aggressive. And just as a woman abroad, I was, a bit afraid of being alone. But I feel like AIFS has really good resident directors there and that they really educate us. And so I knew what to do to protect myself. But I mean, traveling anywhere in the world can be dangerous as a woman. And so I don't feel like Argentina was any more difficult to get around or that the men were any more dangerous. You just have to stand up for yourself and be confident. But I never felt threatened. And so I just think that's something that you really need to think about those stereotypes that a lot of Americans try to push on these other countries and realize that a lot of them come from fear and not really truth. And just, keep yourself in check, watch out for yourself.
And that's a great segue. We have a session that we did last semester that was about being a woman abroad. So that is definitely something, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can check out all the videos from all the Zoom sessions that we've held recently. And then certainly we're going to be posting some more in the future. Let's see. So now, Haley, I want to see if you would talk to us a little bit about your favorite culinary treats while you were abroad. The food is always a big part of it. So what was that experience like?
Yeah, in Barcelona, they have most amazing food, basically food from all different cultures, which is amazing. But something that I really loved was going for tapas with my friends. And there's so many different little plates you can choose from, even if you don't really know what they're going to be. Chances are they're still going to taste amazing. So that was always one of my favorite things, to just go and order a bunch of different plates and desserts. One of my favorite desserts in Barcelona was churros con chocolate. Yes. And it was just so delicious. And I always want to recreate it back home. Another one of my favorite tapas was patatas bravas, which I actually have made at home before. And it was a nice little comfort food. But yeah, the food is amazing there. There's also so much good seafood, which I love. So I was really excited to try new seafood. Like I tried cuttlefish one time, which I wasn't sure what it was, and that was amazing. So yeah, there's amazing food there.
Nice. Anybody else? I'll open it up.
I think the food in Barcelona or Spain in general is just like an entire experience. Like, because like Haley was touching on with tapas, that when you eat tapas, it's usually with a group of people and it's like a very like type of sharing environment. So that makes food like a conversation. It makes it fun. I know also when I was in Barcelona, I did a couple cooking classes. And so it was a really great way to get to know the culture and the food and learn an applicable way to bring it back home to family. So food was always just something that was really fun to me.
Absolutely. And the nice thing too, and this is what I found about tapas, is if you are not an adventurous eater necessarily, if you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like cuttlefish, I don't want to opt into an entire, plate of that. Tapas allows you to kind of try some different things a little bit. And then you're like, oh, I do like that a lot. And then, in the future. Natalie, I feel like you had something to add too.
Okay, well, everything Haley and Rachel said about the food is like totally true. One weird thing that I picked up, like I remember I went to like a cafe one time and there's like a tuna empanada. I was like, that's really weird because like back here, like we don't put like fish in empanadas really. I was like, this is weird, but I decided to try it anyways, and it was like so delicious. And then like I had such a craving for them, like I would get them like every week. They were so good. And also something I never considered, like other places put different things on their pizza. So like the Spanish pizza had like all these like weird, there'd be like all like green olives and like tuna or just like all these other weird things, but like you try it and it like, you're like, I'm not used to it, but it still tastes good. And I thought that was something interesting in their culture.
Absolutely. And then you come back and you're like, why can't I get tuna pizza? What does a girl got to do to get tuna pizza? This is an opportunity once you're back in the US to open up your own pizza place that is inspired by Spanish cuisine. There you go, career opportunities. Any other thoughts on the food while you were abroad?
What Natalie said about the pizza is so true. Like Argentinian pizza, when I first had it, it was crazy. It's really not what you expect. It's very, very different from the pizza we get here in the United States, and it wasn't necessarily my favorite, but I do have to say that their empanadas are amazing, their dulce de leche, and they also have a lot of Italian influence there. And so the Italian food, like pastas and like sauces they have, are amazing. It's so, so good.
Nice.
And
And actually,
another thing, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I had one other thing that was so random and so good. I think it was called Blanco y Negra, and it was literally like a shot of espresso and a scoop of vanilla ice cream. And it was so good to me because I guess it's like coffee, but like a very creamy coffee. It was so good.
I love that. I feel like in Italy, I think it's called affogato. If I'm remembering correctly, it's kind of the same deal where it's ice cream and coffee, two of my favorite things in one convenient location. So I know the next question I'm going to ask you is probably the hardest question that I'm going to ask you, but I would love to hear all of your responses. And Madison, I'm going to ask you to kick it off. What was the best part of your experience abroad?
I would say it's probably all of the different people that I got to meet, because I feel like through these people that I've met, whether they were Argentinians or other people that were studying abroad with me, or classmates, my host family, they all taught me so much about myself, about time management, about creating these amazing bonds. A lot of us went through the pandemic together. And so I really feel like I've bonded with these people. And I've just gotten all of these experiences that have really opened me up and made me, I guess, a better global citizen. I can better understand people, better communicate. And so I really feel like the social aspect and all of these opportunities you get to meet new people are what makes your study abroad experience so worthwhile.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to call on you in the order that I see on my screen. So Haley, I would love to know, what was your favorite experience abroad?
My favorite experience is similar to Madison's. I think that all of the local people and the local friends that I made in Barcelona means so much to me. And it's so interesting to meet people and kind of think, oh, your life is probably so different than mine, but you find all of these things that you have in common, which is just such an amazing experience. And I even talk to some of them every single day to this day. And it's almost been a year since I was abroad. So those friendships that I know will last a lifetime, and even the friends that I made through my study abroad program that live on the East Coast that I probably would have never met in my life if I hadn't have studied abroad, those things are just so special to me. And I just really cherish those friendships. And obviously we all went through the pandemic together. So that makes us all a lot closer. And just having those people to support you and to fall back on is really great.
Absolutely. Thank you. Natalie.
My favorite thing was just like the freedom of being alone, because I've never really like left where I have been. Like I've always been surrounded by people I know, but going abroad, like I didn't know anyone. There was a huge group of boys in my study abroad group. Like they all came from like some college in Rhode Island, so they're like all best friends. But everyone else just like came alone. So I was like, I don't know anyone. I don't know what's happening really. But that was really nice because I was able to learn a lot about myself and like the area around where I was, especially when I could just like go adventure by myself. And that was my favorite thing of all, because it inspired me to want to just like go out more and just adventure and just like not be afraid to meet new people.
Absolutely. And Natalie, I really appreciate you saying that too, because I think a lot of folks want to study abroad, but they're scared maybe to be the only person from their university that's going on the program, or what if I don't know anyone? And I think what all of you are articulating is you're going to meet people, right? And these are going to be people you're going to know for the rest of your life. So don't let that stop you from getting on the plane and going and having this experience, right? Because it's a part of it. Rachel, I would love to know your favorites from being abroad.
I feel like I have so many favorites, but the overarching thing that I loved the most was feeling like I was a part of my local community. Like I feel like a lot of times we go on vacation and we're there for a week and we see the local people, but we're stuck on our resort or stuck to doing our touristy task that we've just like assigned ourselves. But when you're somewhere for like such a long period of time, you live in your apartment and you go to the same grocery store that one day a week, and you go to the same coffee shop and you see the same people on the street and you see the same people on the metro, like stuff like that. Feeling immersed in a part of the community was really important to me. And like, it just made me so happy to be there. So much to the point where I feel like when I got back, I felt like I was homesick from my home in Spain. So that's something I really, really enjoyed.
Absolutely. I remember I studied abroad in London, but I remember when the people in the train, that work in the stations would like wave to me in the morning because they saw me every day. And it was just like, oh, that's such a good feeling, right? Where you're like, I'm local here and people know that I'm here, and it's such a good feeling. So I appreciate that. Olivia.
I'm going to say it was the weekend trips for me, whether it was in Spain, in different parts, or around Europe. I traveled about every other weekend, some with AIFS excursions and some on my own / with friends that I met in the program. And I just did and saw so many things that were new and exciting. And I feel like I'm a more open-minded person now and more willing to listen to different perspectives after having all that.
Nice. I love that. Absolutely. And as we mentioned earlier, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to travel, both within your host location, your host country, and then certainly depending on, where you are, there's, especially in Europe, you can cover a lot of ground there if you want to. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. And then last, but certainly not least, Alina, what is the favorite part of your study abroad experience?
Yeah, I think the highlight of my experience was getting to live in a homestay. It was just such a pleasure to be able to really be immersed with a Spanish family, to feel like I was at home, and to really get a sense of like what real life in Spain was. So, taking my siesta or sitting in the evenings watching game shows with my host parents, like those little moments and those little things really made my experience as special as it is. And it's what I look back on most fondly today, and what I miss the most, and what I can't get back, because it's something that you can really only get from studying abroad.
Absolutely. And I know you and I have talked before about kind of watching the game shows with your host family. And I do love that, especially because, I sit down and watch Jeopardy every night. So that resonates with me. I love that. So obviously there's so much ground to cover, right? So what I want you to think back to is your pre-study abroad self. And is there anything that you wish you would have known that would have kind of helped you in this process? And so Olivia, I'm going to open that question to you first.
Two things. One is in terms of classes, Granada is a college town. It has like a 25,000 student university there. And I just kind of assumed before I left that I would be integrated into that large university. And I remember telling my parents, this is going to be so different from my 4,000 student school. And then my classes ended up being kind of in a bubble of other Spanish learners at a small school with 2 buildings. And so I just wish I would have known not to make assumptions about how the classes would be before I left. And then the second thing was just because of how the media portrays Spain, I think is where I got this idea. I thought it would just be like a tropical beach all the time. And Spain is actually kind of cold in the winter. In probably like November through February, you need a big coat and a scarf and a hat. So do your research on the climate.
Absolutely. And a little plug for our blog there. We have a lot of different blogs and resources in that space for knowing what to pack and just kind of like how to be prepared before you get on the ground. But those are 2 excellent tips. And now I open it up to all of you. Anyone else have anything that they wish they would have known before they
I agree with Olivia. If I would have known Europe was cold, I don't know why I didn't look at the weather, but like if I would have known it were cold, I would have come with a jacket instead of having to get one later. Also, this is like silly, but if I would have known there were a pandemic, I would have gone and done all of my extra like out of the country trips way earlier. And so, I mean, I put that on myself, like to live more for the moment and not always planning ahead. I really wish I would have like done my trips to different countries in the first couple months that I was there, rather than saving it for the end and then having to miss out on it. And then the last thing is, I wish I would have looked into my phone company's international phone plan, because once I got there, I didn't have any like data to use. So it was kind of just on my own with instructions and trying to contact family. And I had to get a new phone plan once I got there, which took a while. So that's something I would definitely look into before.
Absolutely. 3 very, very, very important pieces right there. Absolutely. Thank you. Anybody else?
For me, I will say also, like Olivia and Rachel said, I wish I had known it was a bit colder there. I am from Texas, so take that with a grain of salt because I do prefer really hot summers, but I was there during their summer and I felt like it was a bit chilly. And then also, I wish I had known a bit more about the Argentinian dialect and the way they speak Spanish, because it is very, very difficult. I'll be honest, it's very different, and they don't use the type of Spanish you're taught in class. They use a completely different form for tú, they use vos. And so if you're planning on studying abroad in Argentina, I'd say kind of listen to some videos or TV shows or music with that accent and dialect, and also kind of learn some of their words that they use for different things, because it took me about 2 weeks to really understand what people were saying to me, just because I was not used to that type of Spanish at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very, very good reminder. And then also something when I think of the Southern Hemisphere is just keeping in mind too, that the seasons are flipped. So our winter is their summer and vice versa, right? When you're thinking about planning, you're like, okay, I'm going in December. Well, guess what? December is going to be warmer in theory down there, because it'll be their summer. So things to keep in mind. Any other, and I'll just kind of open it up to all of you, any other tips, any other resources, anything else that you want to make sure that you share with folks that are thinking about Spain? Natalie?
I wish I had scheduled more things. Like I was pretty spontaneous and I did like a lot of things, but I went in fall 2019. So that was basically the last time I got to travel. And I had all these like plans. I was like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And like, now I can't even do all that stuff because of the pandemic. And so that's just one little regret I have. Like, even though I had like lots of fun, I could have had more fun. And I guess that's a little greedy, but it's okay.
Making the most of, while you're there. And I agree. There were times where I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch whatever the equivalent to Netflix was. I'm gonna watch a DVD. I'm much older than all of you. So, oh, I don't feel like, going to a museum tonight. And yeah, that semester or that time that you're abroad goes by so quickly. So kind of thinking about that balance of self-care and making sure that you're, restoring yourself, but also making sure that you're making the most of the time that you are there. I think that's a lesson that the pandemic has taught all of us, right? Our relationship with time. And like, I know my husband and I, we have a list of places as soon as the world opens back up, we're like, we're going here, and then we're gonna go there, and we're gonna go here and there and there. Gonna need more vacation time. Any other final thoughts?
Yes, I wanted to add two things. One being like to remember majority of people don't know anyone there. So although there will be those groups of people who maybe came with some friends, majority of people don't know anyone. So don't be afraid to just say hi to someone, start a conversation, sit next to someone on the bus you don't know. Just don't stay in your shell. If you can, try your best to get out of it, because that's the way like you can make really great friends. And then the second thing is say yes more than you say no. Like when I first got there, it was probably the first 2 weeks, I was just kind of scared of everything. So I just stayed in my house. Whereas my friends were all going out to eat together, going to the club or the bar, this or that. And I was just scared to do it. And then when I finally got out of my shell and was able to, I was like, I was missing out on this. Like, this is everything. So I think it's really important just to say yes more than you say no, even if it makes you a little uncomfortable.
I love that. Yeah. Part of going abroad is being uncomfortable, right? And going outside of your comfort zone and trying the new foods and talking to strangers and taking yourself to a museum by yourself because you really want to see that exhibit and no one else wants to go with you, and doing it anyways. So I think that's excellent advice. Well, yes, Olivia.
Kind of related to that, in going abroad in the first place, one of the things I was really nervous about was leaving my friends and missing out on a whole semester on campus. And then when I got back from studying abroad, I felt like no one on campus had changed. Like everything there was the same, but I had changed. And so I'm really glad that I made the leap and just went for it.
Absolutely. That's yes. Yes, I 1000% agree with that. If there's any part of you that wants to do it, excuse me, find a way and make it happen. Something that I failed to mention earlier in the session that I want to highlight is that we have scholarships for studying abroad. So although we did not talk in this session about funding study abroad, we do have resources for that. And definitely make sure that you are talking with your study abroad office about, how your financial aid package can travel there. Depending on your home institution, you may be able to take all your financial aid and all your scholarships. So definitely check that out. We also have robust funding. More than 50% of AIFS students receive some sort of grant or scholarship for their participation in the program. And so definitely make sure to check out those resources. I appreciate so much all of you being here and sharing all of your experiences. I love hearing all your different adventures and all of that. I learn something every time I connect with all of you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all of our guests for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you on another session. Stay healthy, everyone, and we look forward to seeing you sometime soon.